My name is Gladys Ford, and I was born in Ashdown, Arkansas. My parents left Ashdown when I was 3 months old, thank heavens. And we moved to Muskogee, Oklahoma. I was born in 1920, if I didn't say that. We left Muskogee when I was 7 and moved to Houston. At that time, I guess there was not an Episcopal church, but my family, the Rowetts, and the several other families met in the basement of a building in downtown Houston, at that time called the Oddfellows Temple. It's where Bea Paredes is now, down on Prairie. And we met in the basement, and the priest was Father Birch. Several years after that, St. Luke's, I guess it was St. Luke's then, but they built St. Luke's out here in the 3rd Ward, and we loved St. Luke's. And at that time, we had the first priest was Father Davies, who was the priest also at St. Augustine in Galveston. There was a woman in the diocese, Lynette Gieseking, who was in charge of youth, I guess. And I can remember her coming out to Young People's Service League and talking to us. But there was never any thought of anybody going to camp. I don't know that I knew that Camp Allen existed. No, heavens no. We went down to St. Augustine in Galveston. We had a good time. The girls stayed in the house, and the boys stayed under the house. And John Foley affirmed that. It must have been awful because I'm sure there wasn't more than one bathroom in that house. But there were 10 or 12 girls. But we had a good time. We had service on the beach. We didn't know any better. First time I went to Camp Allen was after I retired and came back and was on the vestry. And we went to Camp Allen for a retreat. But that just was not a part of our psyche. The confirmation classes were held at Trinity, and I think I remember one being held at Christ Church. But that was our only, as far as I remember, our only interaction with the larger church. Well, I left here to go to college, and I didn't really come back to live until I retired in 1985. At one point, while I was away working, I was advisor to the Episcopal students. I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and the diocese at that time set up a church for the students from Meharry Medical College, Tennessee State University, and Fisk University, where I worked. It was called St. Anselm's. And at the same time, they set up one for Vanderbilt, completely separate, and never the twain shall meet. This was before the 60s. And I stayed, I was advisor to them. They built the building until the 60s, and it became a little bit too militant for me. That was a very important and significant time in Nashville, as it was in many parts of the country. And I was very proud of the students who participated, though I don't know how they got the courage to go downtown and be assaulted. But the bombing of Mr. Luby's house was the thing that brought things to a head in Nashville. There was an Episcopalian, Alexander Luby, who was a lawyer and a city councilman whose home was directly across the street from Meharry and around the corner from Fisk. And one morning, very early, they dropped a bomb on, and it shattered the front of his house. Fortunately, he and his wife were asleep in the back. That afternoon, students from Vanderbilt, Tennessee State, Fisk, Meharry walked without uttering a sound. All you could hear was feet. And they walked to the mayor's office. And that was the incident that opened up Nashville. I think some people enjoy being in what they call their own church, or some people from habit go to churches where they grew up, and there is integration. But I think people go to church where they feel comfortable, without regard to race. And I think that's important. I never knew why my parents left St. Louis to come to St. James, and it didn't matter to me. When I came home, they were at St. James, and I came to St. James. You asked me, I guess, the importance of church in my life. It has provided, I assume, and I'm sure, the framework for beliefs and behaviors and guidance. I think I would be lost, and I think anybody who does not have spiritual grounding would be lost. On what do you base your beliefs and your behaviors, if not in my case, Christianity?